Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Live and Local entitled Community Media at Risk. I'm Hans Hirschelman. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Board of Directors here at Public Access Television. And with me tonight are Chris O'Hanlon, the Executive Director of the Everett Connor Center for Assisted Living, Drew Schaefer, the City Cable Administrator, Nicholas Johnson, a former FCC Commissioner as well as a UI Law Professor, and member of the public and ICTC Commissioner Brett Gordon. And so tonight we are here to talk about the recently passed bill. It has a few names at this point, but the most recognizable name would be SF 554. And what this bill does is creates a video franchise on the statewide level for new players, most of which are from the telecommunications industry. But before I get too much into that, I would like to open the floor to any comments from any of our guests.
Well, if nobody's going to speak, I think the one of the most fundamental points about this cable bill, I mean, aside from the fact that Quest laid $185,000 on the Iowa legislature, to which they then responded.
Lobbyists gone wild.
Yeah, they kind of like that, but no video. And is that Quest could always go into the cable business. It can go into the cable business without this bill.
For the last 10 years.
So what is this about? It's not that Quest can't go into the cable business. It's that Quest can't go into the cable business without writing its own rules. So what the legislature has decided to do is to let Quest write the rules. The level playing field just tilt a little bit in their direction, you see? So all the money rolls down the field and under the goalposts where they can pick it up more easily than if they had to go up and down the field and pick it up one coin at a time. That's the kind of the bottom line on what this is about from one old defrocked FCC commissioner view. What do you think?
I think the bottom line is the build-out. I think that they really do not want to go to the expense of giving rural people who live on farms, low-populated counties, underprivileged parts of town. I just don't think that they want to bring us into the 21st century. I mean, I think it's a shame that Iowa, a place where they built the Anderson and ABC computer, or Asmanoff Berry computer, or whatever, ENIAC, that we would be in the 21st century, 21st in line in technological infrastructure, and I think it's the deregulations that have promoted that. I think we're paying for it. I think we're paying for the fiber optic with multi-billion-dollar quarters in record profits for a decade.
Well, that build down is very important. And when I was on the FCC, that was one of the first things that we looked at, both for telephone companies in providing telephone service, but also for cable companies. Because just like Navin Johnson discovered in the movie The Jerk, that the guessing the weight of the people at the county fair, he said finally, I get it, this is a profit deal. Well, cable television is a profit deal, and if it's a profit deal, who do you want to provide cable service to? The wealthiest people in town, because where you make the really big bucks, as Drew will at some point explain to us all, is not on the basic service, but on these pay tiers. Now, you know, I was used to the day when we used to pay $3.95 for our monthly telephone bill, And I was at $9.95 initially for cable in Iowa City, something like that. And I thought that was about $5 a month too much. But there are people who are happy to pay $100, $150, $200 a month for cable service. Well, if it's a profit deal, those are the ones you want to serve. Why should you run cable up and down a street where nobody is rich enough to even subscribe to basic service if you can concentrate on those markets? Well, that's what we made the cable companies do. You coming into town, you wire the whole town. And Qwest doesn't want to have to do that.
Yeah, I think that's something that we all understand money. I mean, this is about money. Somebody's making money, somebody's losing money. That's clear, that's a game. What's the result of this program going to be? It's going to be to take away something. What are we losing? And it's a critical thing that we're losing. We're losing the voice of community broadcast, of shows like the one you're listening to right now, because there will be no funding allowed for those kinds of programs that have been required under the past system. So in effect, we're muzzling the voice of the people.
The only true honest media.
The only open, only way.
It's not spun, it doesn't have commercials on it, that doesn't call you up and ask you for money.
Yeah, I run the Independent Living Center, not for assisted living, but for independent living.
Oh, independent living.
But that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that people understood this is about living in our community and being part of our community and having our voice out there. And as people with disabilities, we're not rich. We don't have the big money to go out and spread our issues and our interests. All we have is the right ideas, we have the moral perspective, and we have opportunities to share those issues with people in the public because we know they're the right things to be doing. We don't have the money to dump $195,000 on the legislator to help encourage our point of view to be legislatively responded to. We have decent people that we work with, and we try to stand up for that. And the best way that we can do that is through getting our voice out. We produce a TV show here at the public radio station that I am extremely proud of that has gone all over the country. We've taken clips of this, DVDs, and sent them to the national people. We've taken them to Congress in Washington, D.C. We've shared the shows that we made right here with our community here, with communities around the state. And this will all be dead. We will have nobody that will be paying for that. Your other channels will be shut down. Programs all over the state are going to suffer. You know, that to me is silencing the voice of the people at a time when we really need to have less corporate development of the same old things repeated over and over everywhere. You travel anywhere in this country now, it's all homogenized. You go south and you're still shopping at Wendy's and Burger King, and it's not like it used to be where you had diversity. And unless we fight for some diversity, we're going to be in deep shit in this country. I mean, that's the whole point. We've got to demand that because these companies are not going to provide it. And the FCC sure as hell isn't going to provide it because, excuse my language, but they're not protecting our rights. They're just turning the keys to the airwaves over to big business and saying, here, you guys fight over it.
You know, there's been this ethic that we were brought up with in America, and it's one that we inherited from Ben Franklin and the original press, and that is a journalistic ethic of the Fourth Estate, and that's why it has constitutional connections and has a function for our society. Now, if we continued that same ethic through the radio hearings of the Hoover days and into the early days of broadcasting, and ran everything pretty much for 70 years. It's the deregulations in the Reagan years that got rid of truth in advertising, got rid of what all to get rid of it, got rid of a few things.
Well, they declared fraud to be in the public interest, and that was getting rid of regulatory underbrush, as they called it. I should say, when I was at the FCC, I spent 7 years writing some 400 dissenting opinions, bemoaning the corporate control of the commission and the failure to uphold the public interest. And now we look back on those years that I thought couldn't possibly get worse. We now look back on those years as the golden age of responsible FCC regulation compared to what's going on today. We got two fellas there that are all right. And aside from that, it's pretty bad news. Yeah, Copps and Adelstein are both.
Adelstein.
They're traveling the country, holding public meetings, letting people know their rights. Same kind of thing I used to do. We also ought to say, in fairness to our local elected officials, that among the few people who voted against this bill in the Iowa Senate and in the Iowa House, that every single one of our local senators and representatives voted against this bill with one exception, and that was Senator Joe Bolcom, who's normally very honorable and bright, and he just, you know, once in a while he's got to be wrong, and this is one of those times. But aside from Joe, who I usually admire, every one of our local folks voted against this bill, and I think that speaks well of them and of the constituency that they know they're representing. Why does that leave you speechless? Nothing has ever left you speechless.
This bill is not an inoculation for the virus that was brought to us with the tabloid press from England through Australia by the name of Rupert Murdoch.
That was quite a sentence. No wonder it took you a while to come up with that.
Rupert Murdoch has given, the tabloid press has given our Fourth Estate press a virus. And this bill, in my mind, is just needs inoculation.
Yeah, what protects the people in this bill?
Participate, in the bill?
That is one of the very things that we are here to discuss. What are the things that are in and are not in the bill? And from my list here, the first thing I see is loss of local government regulatory control.
Aye.
And so I would say you would be the first person that we'd want to talk to about that as city cable administrator.
That's right.
Yeah, a worthless position. They haven't saved us citizens any money at all, have you?
No. You know, if there's a phone pole in your front yard, this man can help you at this moment. But I don't know. Will you be able to help me with a phone pole in my front yard?
I won't be able to help you with that. I won't be able to help you with rate regulation. I won't be able to help you with consumer protection. I won't be able to help you save your channel after, certainly within 10 years. After that, it's all gone.
Yeah, and what you're speaking of is the current position in the bill that a current franchise, if left unchecked, can only exist for 10 more years until they are forced to either, I guess, drop out of the market or adopt the video franchising agreement that is in this bill.
Chances are good that Quest will, and I want to just go back for just a second and say that what we're talking about here is basically a perpetual franchise. We're talking about something that Quest, primarily Quest, I mean there's ITA and others who are involved too, but it's Quest who's the real motivating factor here. And this is a method for them to get basically a perpetual franchise, one that exists forever, just like AT&T got in this state back in 1897, I think it was, over 100 years ago, which was and is a perpetual franchise. This now grants Quest.
Which is why the telephone pole's in his yard.
Exactly.
And you can't get it out of there
that's
because,
right.
Yeah.
So that's, like Chris and everybody else was saying, this is about money. This is a license to print money, basically. And it's, as I was saying earlier, it was on the governor's desk on Monday. The legislature ends on Friday. So in between now and then, we're going to find out whether the governor...
So it was Monday, April 23rd, 2007 you're talking about.
And what is it that they're selling? It's our airwaves.
We own the bandwidth, but
somewhere along the line, the product that was out there free in the airwaves for generations is now being chopped up and sold off and given away. And in that process, at one point, they gave us local control that could require them to do certain things in the public interest.
Level, was it not? That the idea of local regulation was introduced.
Well, the history of cable regulation, as Drew well knows, is that the cable companies started off and they didn't want FCC involvement at all. You'll usually...
They still don't.
Well, no, but here's the story, you see. That a regulated business wants to be regulated if it has to be regulated by whichever governmental level of government is going to be most easily corrupted. And initially that was the local city councils who hadn't a clue as to what this cable thing was all about. And so the cable companies would come into town and just walk away with a store, like the Music Man and his 76 trombones. And then we got the Ford Foundation to create the Cable Television Information Office. That's what it was called. And so we got information out to the cities and said, hey, look, you can make these folks bid. You can ask them for a facility like this one where we're making this program. And you can tell them that they've got to wire up the fire stations and whatever else, and give you a mobile van truck and buy you some cable equipment for your public access. Oh, wow, we can. And so they started to. And the marketplace began to work, which is the last thing on earth any business wants to have happen. Because now the cable companies were competing, which meant they were all trying to outbid each other. That's the way the market is supposed to work. But they ended up promising more than they could deliver. So at that point they decided, well, hey, you know, this local control isn't all that swift after all. We'd like the federal government to get on our backs and get the cities off.
And that would have been
and
about
that's
2 years
then
ago.
You only have 535 people you have to deal with, the United States Senate and the House, and 7 commissioners, and they got that cut down to 5, and it was even cheaper. They had fewer people they had to take lunch. And so then it all shifted off to the FCC. And I predicted at the beginning, I said that because initially the broadcasters controlled the FCC, and so cable couldn't do anything. I mean, they were just barely permitted to carry the local signals in that town. And let me tell you, that's a tough sell. You go knock on the door, what do you got? Well, I'm going to offer you ABC, CBS, and NBC. I got that already. Well, yeah, but you're not getting it on a cable. Well, that just doesn't sell, see, so they had to have something to sell. So I said that's going to change when the day comes that the broadcasters own the cable companies. And at that point, you'll see, then that's what happened. And then they relaxed the regulation. And it went the way of broadcast regulation.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking about franchises, so what is the current city franchise? I think most people have no idea what that means. So, like, what is it that it brings to Iowa City locally?
Well, we have 2 documents in Iowa City. One's called a franchise agreement, and the other is the enabling ordinance. I think the franchise agreement is 40-some pages long, and the ordinance is maybe 30 or 40 pages long. It sets out a contract between the cable company and the city, and it details what it is that the cable company is going to do with regard to their cable system, how they're going to build it, when they're going to build it, what it's going to carry, etc. So it becomes very detailed about every aspect of what the company does. Government can't control what the cable company puts on the airwaves. Government stays completely out of that. And what we're looking at here in terms of SF 554 is basically a 10-page document. And then what it talks about is Quest coming in and getting a statewide franchise from the state government, which is a 1-page document.
Which would be the Iowa Utilities Board. That would be the area of the state government.
That is correct. So Quest would come in and fill out this 1 page and say who it is they're going to serve in the state. Maybe they're going to say everybody in the state. And that's all they have to do to get their franchise. There's no negotiating with the local governments about what it is they're going to do, what kind of things they're going to reciprocate in terms of returning something back to that community in terms of paying for the use of their public land, which is the public right-of-way. That is the public's land.
Yes.
It is managed by the local government, but it is the public's land, and that is the land that Quest has to use in order to get their signals to you.
And I think it's important that you point out that most people don't know what this is that's been done. Most people are not going to know what they're losing in direct awareness until it's already gone.
They're even doing things like they're taxing the satellite dishes a franchise fee instead of giving public access the bandwidth. I mean, satellites don't use the infrastructure, but they ought to contribute to the bandwidth for the public debate. And nobody's talking about the public debate here. Nobody's talking about the build out. That's why I'm here. Mm-hmm. I'm just squeaking more about the build out. Okay.
Now,
I think one thing we need to really do is be careful. The sarcasm of us at this table is pretty good right now because we had this bill rammed down our throats.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it just came up last month.
Never seen a bill go through like this because legislators do not say this bill is going to pass. You guys can make some amendments to it and we'll try to put those in and adjust later. But this bill is going to pass and it's done. That's bull. I'm sorry, but they don't talk that way about disability legislation. You know, I'm trying to help people get out of nursing homes and they just let them lay there. That doesn't mean anything, but when you try to push through a bill like this that's under the name of competition, it's going as competition.
That's a buzzword, isn't it? It's just another way of selling it. And it's the persuasion. There's no honest media left. Every media that's out there right now is geared to persuading you to do something, buy something. This is the only medium that's honest that has no persuasion other than each individual producer having a cue.
You mean public access television?
But I mean, there needs to be more. I was hoping that the governor would take this opportunity to lead this issue to clarity in 34, 40 states that this is working in. This is an extension of a COPE bill on a federal level that was just in October that was killed with a lot of hard work from a lot of people all over across the nation and finally got strangled down and tied up and fell over at the end of the federal legislative session, only then to spawn like a dandelion all over these states. And Iowa picking up on this and ramming it so fast through our process it's shocking that it was that cheap. I would have thought that they would have cost a lot more than $20 a pop.
The problem is that
they hold out for $5, you know.
That the same thing is happening in Des Moines as has been happening in Washington, D.C. for some decades now, and that is the larger and larger role of big money and big money to the leadership of both parties in the legislature. What did Culver's race cost? $8.2 million, something like that. So we got the $8 million man there in the governor's mansion. I think we simply have to, until we do something about campaign finance reform, public finance. I did a study some years ago looking at a number of industries and what kind of payback they get on campaign contributions. And I'm talking in the $100,000 to $1 million level, soft money to the national parties, to the inaugural ball, to the convention, those kind of contributions. The payback runs between 1,000 to 1 and 2,000 to 1. You give $1 million, you get back $1 billion or $2 billion. And it can take a variety of forms. Tax cuts, antitrust exemptions, tariffs, subsidies, price supports, $50 million rainforests, you know, or this as it is, $300 million rainforest. And now they're going after the state legislature for more public money again when they couldn't produce a dime in 10 years of any private money.
Yeah, but for me, I think public access is open to all parties.
Yeah.
We have shows here. This is cut in live to do a show with Senator Grassley to share his thoughts with the community here. We brought in other speakers. We're working on a whole thing for the whole presidential campaign, to all the candidates to have an opportunity to come sit down here and talk with us one-on-one in our community with no artificial games being played, just us talking to them. and right in front of the camera for our community. And that's going to go silent. That's being
but
killed.
that's what I'm talking about in terms of the campaign finance business. And until we get, because there's no such thing, there's no funding of campaigns that isn't public financing. It's either you pay $4 on your income tax return, or you'll pay the $1,000 times that. You'll pay the $4,000 in increased gasoline prices, pharmaceutical prices, what you pay for an automobile.
Absolutely.
Everything that you buy, you're going to pay that $4,000. And I would far rather pay $4 in so-called public financing than $4,000 in what it's really about.
You know, because I bet you that's really easy, though, because when you do your research and you figure in one company that that can move to Dubai and lose $7 trillion, I mean, how much does it have to give? I mean, it skews the records pretty good there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good, honest corporations out there that appreciate the fund. Well, I think that any corporation in Iowa that's
all Iowa corporations are good.
They keep but they keep their manufacturers like Pella Windows keeps its workers. It didn't trade out to another country.
You got to have windows, and they're good windows. You can see through them.
No, but I'm just saying that
they're easy to clean.
Iowans have good corporations.
Gentlemen, one thing
good
I'd like
corporate
to get
ethic.
to that's real important is...
You think we're off topic over here, don't you?
No. I think that from my standpoint, that what money is going to be shut down here? What programs are going to be cut off? Because I know public access is one channel.
Yes.
But there are other things that are going to be lost to Iowa City and to the surrounding communities all over this state. What are they?
And actually, I would say that we have a perfect person to say so in the mayor of Waterloo. At the moment, I cannot remember his name. We have a clip from
Tim Hurley,
the subcommittee meeting that we attended as a group. And once this gets rolled up, you can have a look for yourself at what he had to say on this issue.
And while we're waiting, if you will give me a clue when you got it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Drew might tell us, we've got 5 or 6 public channels on this cable.
7.
7, okay. Public access television is one of those.
Correct.
But what are the others?
Well, we have the library channel.
Public library.
We have the school channel, the local school channel.
School district.
We have
and
the,
does Kirkwood also share that one?
No, they have a separate channel.
Okay.
Kirkwood has their own channel. University of Iowa has a channel. City government has 2 channels, and then public access. That makes 7 channels.
And then there's senior citizens on the web.
Yes, and they have
Coming in
their own
very
programs.
strong, senior center TV.
And
so
now,
really 8.
You ready?
Okay. I was going to say the reason. Are we ready for the clip?
Representative Wise, my name is Tim Hurley. I'm mayor in Waterloo, and I'll probably bring a perspective that's way behind the times, because obviously your committee is in a hurry. There's a tone of impatience.
Well, you've heard of a thing called a legislative funnel?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Maybe just what I heard this morning might be a result of the fact that, in my own opinion, and in many in my city, this bill is unneeded, unnecessary, illogical, and other things, but here we are. No one from the video providers has approached my city or my office. You can go to my city this afternoon. We don't have exclusive franchises. We're open for business. And so I just am coming from a different angle. The league is representing us well. I'm very concerned about our right-of-way management. That right and right-of-way belongs to the citizens of my city, not to private enterprise. And when I'm elected and representing those people, it's incumbent on me to, first of all, protect the use of that public right-of-way that carries gas, electric, water, sewer, telephone, cable TV, and it's getting pretty doggone crowded. And so there is a responsibility on my part in representing my citizens' public right-of-way that it is managed. And this bill doesn't do it for me. I can't get past the first, I can't absorb where we spend most of our energy, what revenues we're going to exclude. let alone how this is going to be managed. And so I feel like it's an unnecessary assault on what we're trying to do. It is, in the end, it has the danger of being anti-competitive, anti-consumer, and anti-business. Because while cities have been accused, I understand, of being greedy about franchise fees, etc., they're absolutely necessary. The leasing of that public right-of-way, we should get something for it, for a for-profit business. And the management fees, the same thing. And those generally in a city go into a general fund that is attacked from all angles. And it's absolutely, it's not greed. It's providing for firemen and policemen and parks and quality of life and clerks and dog licenses. So I'm obviously very concerned, and I apologize for my tone. I feel like a pair of brown shoes in a room full of tuxedos here, just in terms of my ability to absorb what is going on with the bill. We've got a competitive situation right now. There's non-exclusive franchises. We were not invited to the table, or nobody came to our table to discuss this last year or the year before. And if it must go.
Now that was Timothy Hurley, Mayor of Waterloo, and I would say, Drew, how does that compare to our situation, what he said?
Well, it compares beautifully, because what he's saying about the public right-of-way is obviously a concern for Iowa City, just like it is for Waterloo, and also his statement, which is something that Nick said earlier, is that all of the franchises in Iowa right now, all of the cable TV franchises in Iowa right now are non-exclusive franchises, meaning anybody else could come in, Quest could come in, anybody else could come in and offer a franchise, a similar franchise, and compete. So what Mayor Hurley is confused about, we're confused about as well. And getting back to what Nick was asking earlier about the access channels, a couple things about that. When this bill passes and Quest comes into town, what will be required of each one of these channels is a fee to convert their signal to the signal type that Quest uses, which will be either IPTV, Internet Protocol Television, or some variation of that. That will cost in the neighborhood of $20,000 per channel for all of these 7 channels that we're talking about up front, plus $10,000 per year for T1 lines. So those extra expenses for each...
T1 is a very broad-banded telephone.
Exactly.
24 lines.
So some of these channels may not be able to afford those kinds of costs, and that will certainly affect them and maybe drive some of them out of business. And then Chris had asked me earlier, what's all this money that we're talking about in terms of the money that public access gets, in terms of the pass-through fee? Those are funds that in this bill says can last at the longest 10 years. Some people might say, well, 10 years. We have 10 years to go. Well, it's taken 30 years in Iowa City to build to the point that we now have these channels that we're talking about. 10 years is a drop in the bucket, comparatively speaking, and there's no reason why this has to end, why these channels have to end, why these franchises need to expire as the state legislature proposes. But in fact, that's what we see in this bill. Any service that we're talking about, whether it's the access channels, whether it's consumer protection, whether it's rate regulation or whatever, that ends in 10 years or less.
Well, and the argument can be made that what has really provided protection for consumers, notwithstanding the very limited power the industry's influence on the Congress and the FCC has left with the cities, but you're getting an extra $319,000 a year from Mediacom, if I've got my numbers correct, above and beyond, which you've negotiated on behalf of the people of Iowa City. So when you ask, what have you all done for us lately, you haven't done all that badly. And the other point I think we need to make is that under this bill, as I understand it, once Quest comes into a town, the bill then authorizes Mediacom to come in and say, we want the same deal Quest got. which is not unreasonable, but the point is that it's not just giving away the store to Quest. It's a kind of eliminating any regulation and franchises on Mediacom as well, ultimately. Sometimes immediately. I gather it's immediately. As soon as Quest comes in, immediately Mediacom can get the same, can't they?
30 days.
Yeah.
No more rate regulation. Boom, immediately.
And that's a very large point that I want to make sure is made, that rate regulation. What does that mean, Drew?
When we went to Des Moines and talked to the other cities and legislators who were involved in this bill, we found out that, in fact, unfortunately, we're the only city in the state of Iowa that regulates rates. It used to be that the cities could regulate all rates. Then they cut us back until now we can only regulate basic service rates. And as a result of the regulation, we try to do due diligence at the city here in Iowa City. And we do, in fact, have the lowest basic service rates in Iowa as a result of that rate regulation. That's going to go away with this bill. So we will no longer be able to help the citizens. In our estimation of the population that most needs assistance, those who have disabilities, those who are senior citizens, those with limited incomes, that's all they can afford. A lot of times it's just the basic service cable. So we've tried to keep that rate low. We won't have it. Excuse me. We won't have anything to say about that in the future.
Yeah, but competition will keep it low.
To play devil's advocate.
Yeah, what are we going to do with all the money we're going to save from our competition?
Yeah, can you imagine a company going to the legislature and lobbying for a bill that will reduce rates to consumers because they want to promote competition? Yeah, I don't think so.
And I feel I must point out one of the largest things that struck me personally about this whole situation was the idea that competition was going to solve everything, but no one seemed to be paying attention to what they were talking about the competition of. There will be competition, but even the CEO of AT&T is on record saying, we don't see it as being a competition on price. We see it as a competition on value and services. So, and what I translate that to is the idea of bundles, where you buy your phone, you buy your internet, and you buy your cable all from one person, and so they give you a discount.
I think we should have a pick 5 where you get your basic rate at your $11.25 like we have, and then you get to pick 5. And if it has a commercial on it, you get to pick 5 of those stations. And a premium channel is a channel that has no commercials on it. And you pick 5, so you can pick your CNN and your Comedy Central and your Bible study and your Music Hour and your TNN. And that's your 5. And then that way, for $5 more on your rate for your $15 cable bill, you pretty much have what you want. And then let the market speak through a la carte.
We should put you in a cable business. I don't know if you could persuade him of that. But another point, Drew, you might want to make and not that I view my role as speaking on behalf of large corporations in America, but I do think it's only fair to point out that when we get cable rate increases, I'm not saying they're running a nonprofit organization, but most of those rate increases are attributable to increases in programming charges that they have to pay, as with the great evil Sinclair. But basically everything that you're getting on cable that's not a local station, and now local stations as well, the cable company has to pay to get that programming. They don't own all that programming. And when those rates go up, they have to pass that along. And that's going to be true whether it's Quest or it's Mediacom or whoever.
They all have to purchase their programming. They all purchase it from the same place. They're all paying approximately the same cost. So they're all going to have to charge approximately the same cost in order to make a profit, which is what they're there for.
Now we really don't have anybody on this panel that's in favor of this bill.
No.
Is that because they don't want to speak, or we just don't want to share their viewpoint, or?
For me, it's they've already had their say. They have their bill sitting on Governor Culver's desk, and we are now left to try and salvage what we can.
But I disagree with something that Drew said, and I think you know, it's passed off over and over and over and over, this notion that they're in a profit business and that's what they're there for. And the whole notion of being incorporated is to serve the public. And
now you're taking us back to the 19th century.
Well,
you were the one who won tickets in the 21st.
Well,
are you going to tell us about the Supreme Court decision?
Okay. Well, I could go there. I wasn't going to go there. I was just going to go there. I was actually going to go more along the lines that you know, this peeling back of rate regulations and unchecking of our corporate citizenry, that it's a repeal of the New Deal, which was a patch on the laissez-faire capitalism that pretty much ate this country through a depression. So I was kind of going there.
Yeah, well, that's a good place to go. But you're peeling apples and oranges, and as you know, an orange peel is a lot thicker than an apple peel.
So now, where this all stands right now, this bill is laying on the governor's desk. He's going to sign it probably because we're all fatalistic here, it sounds like, and the forces that we felt coming at us. And so, folks, it's done. You're shafted if you value these things. Well, if you don't care, and a lot of people don't care about the library channel or the public access channel or hearing the viewpoint of people with disabilities directly from them, if you don't value those, whoopee, you can now have 3 different versions of the same channel on.
You sound like Pledge Week on Iowa Public Radio. Well, hey, and listen, besides, there is still time if they're watching this tonight, if it's on his desk. Yeah. Unless he can write faster than I think he can. He hasn't signed it yet. There's still time to send an email, to make a phone call.
There's a website. There's a website, http://tv.iciaus.com, standing for Iowa City, Iowa, United States.
Can we have somebody write that down?
I think there is a graphic on there that should pop up. It would be a great idea to go and tell the governor. There's a couple of samples there for you to look at.
I mean, I was all in favor of just going live broadcast until it's dead. Just keeping people here and keeping things, bringing in a coffee.
Well, it would be like the Iowa Public Radio.
And start letting the word out that people know that.
Begathon.
I'm not begging for anything. I'm saying I'm getting robbed here of something that's critical to me, to my community, and to my ability to speak to my local and national community, and it's being stolen
from the people. Me. We don't even have a clue. We can't go in.
And it's my property. My airwaves are being denied me because of somebody else coming in.
And they wouldn't let you in the Ronald Reagan room, the conference room.
I don't care about the politics. I just care about whether you're Democrat or Independent or Republican.
It's the right thing to do.
If you're selling or giving away the airwaves or the water or the forest or whatever,
it belongs to us all.
In order so that your friends can make money, or so some business can make money, or somebody else can do that, then you're robbing from me, and they're robbing something really precious here. This shouldn't be argued over semantics or politics or anything. It's just a fact that we're losing something here, and it's being guised in the name of competition. And some places competition doesn't work. Yeah. Doesn't work in medicine, and it's not going to work here.
And speaking of which, if we can take a moment, we have another clip from which I should say from earlier, the clip from Timothy Hurley was from the House Commerce Subcommittee on April 2nd in Des Moines. And we have another clip here of Laura Burgess from North Liberty and what her comments were on North Liberty's cable system, which does have currently competition.
We're in a unique situation in that we currently have 2 franchise cable providers in our city. One is a telephone company and one is a cable company. And I can say, this may be anecdotal, but our rates, I did a comparison of our rates with those of neighboring communities, and ours are higher than those of neighboring communities. Just something you may want to bear in mind. I share a lot of the concerns that league representatives and other city representatives have already voiced, opt-out being a huge one. I understand that the build-out provision may be off the table for discussion, but please, if the subcommittee members could consider the implications of that for the future. We're talking about not just cable TV, but these providers offer multitudes of services over their infrastructure, and once we let them begin to cherry pick and redline and choose which neighborhoods are worthy of their more advanced infrastructure, there's no reason that in the future...
Do you believe this bill does that?
I believe it, yes.
Do you have specifics? Obviously, we would be against redlining.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that comment. The very, very minimal provision at the very end of the bill regarding build-outs would only affect Quest. There are over 125 independent phone companies in the state of Iowa who would not be affected by that and would not trigger that requirement. There are also the only prohibitions against discrimination are based on income. And I can tell you that in my neighborhood where I live, which happens to be in Iowa City, their Quest does not offer high-speed internet service because they do not deem it to be a lucrative neighborhood. And I'm lucky in that I do have another high-speed provider that I can go to, but in the future I would not be able to receive video service from Quest because of where I live. They have no idea how much money I make. They have no idea the income of anyone who lives in an apartment in downtown, who may be a single parent, or a farmer who lives on the outskirts of town, who maybe is half a mile too far from what they deem to be the appropriate infrastructure to support that. So please, if there is the option to bring the discussion build out back to the table, I believe that is why it needs to be there.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Who's next? Yes.
My name is Ryan Wickstrom. I'm the franchise authority for the city of Coralville, and as you know, we're just south of North Liberty, and South Slope is interested in coming into Coralville as well. And by no means,
it's a convergence of forces right now.
It is.
And once again, that was Laura Burgess and a little bit of Ryan Wickstrom, I'm sorry, Ryan, from Coralville, who's the city or the cable administrator there. And that, by the way, video in its entirety is available online on Google Video. If you just type in SF554 into Google Video, you will be able to view that in its entirety. Well, we are sort of closing in on the end here. I would like to go around and make sure that everybody has said what they would like to say. So I get some of the things that I personally, being the vice chair at Public Access, would like to make known is just that this voice that we have here is a very unique thing. It takes a little bit of love to make sure that it keeps going, and just the level of community involvement that is needed to have an access channel is immense. But here in Iowa City, we have that. We have that immense support for such a thing, and I'd hate to see it on the state level just come in and push us aside, which they have pretty much done. We tried to air our concerns, but we were overruled and ignored is what my feelings were, and I hope that people watching have a chance to let their voices be heard, either by contacting the governor, contacting their local legislators, or protesting in the streets. I guess, how far do you want to take the First Amendment? It's your choice.
Well, that's a good point. I think I've spoken more than anybody, and I'm sorry if I have, but this is really, really getting to the heart of people's that aren't aware of how politics works. They sit at home, they watch their TV. They know they're fed up with it. They know what's going on. They just get used to it. It's kind of like there's nothing we can do about it, but there is something that people can do about it if they want to stop being sheep and start standing up. We don't have to be sheep and go along with this. I was talking with you about you not being as mad as you were, as I would expect you to be, because you're getting the shaft now. Tell them well, you're not.
Well, I was saying to Chris that this is really the culmination of about 30 years worth of attacks from the cable industry and attacks at congressional level, the state legislative level, the court, the FCC, and now the phone companies. So it's been a progression all those years. It's just that we weren't attacked on all fronts simultaneously. And here Quest has come in, and it's just one too many fronts to fight. And they've won this battle, maybe they haven't won the war.
They really snuck it in. They snuck it in, they rammed it through, really under a cloak of, you know, I heard one radio program about it, and it was not even exactly informative, and it allowed the corporate media to go ahead and say these unfounded, cite unfounded facts, and then when somebody did call in with correct facts, they were then poo-pooed as not knowing their stuff, and it was not a very good program actually, and so we're trying to remedy that here with this, but it's just that it's so quick, so much, so fast, and it costs so little.
Yeah. I was going to say one of the few things I saw on it on local news was TV9 saying, you want better competition and possibly lower prices, and that was the line. That was it. There was no what it did.
Sound bite.
There was no
fact checking. There was no nuancing. There was no information service. There was no fourth estate ethic of journalism applied. It was sheer greed. At Warp Factor 3, lobbyists gone wild in Des Moines.
The reason that I care particularly about the public access and the other channels Drew's talking about is that this was the one thing I insisted on and for which I traded my vote as an FCC commissioner, that I would not vote for the policy that the majority of the commission wanted unless they would require the local cable companies to provide some public access. And so I also feel betrayed, but I'm with Chris. You know, if you're not outraged about this, you really don't understand what's going on because you ought to be outraged. And in addition to the public access channels, there are some other things I mentioned in this column I wrote in the Des Moines Register about all of this. That Mediacom offers most cities free connection for libraries and for schools and city offices. Production services for city council meetings because it's not just making the channel available. Free or reduced cost information, public service announcements from the city. Direct access to the emergency alert system, which is kind of important in this day and age. Financial support for broadband city networks. So there's a lot that the cable company, through tough negotiation by Drew Schaefer and Michael Brow, we should mention, who's a major figure in this as well. A number of things that they have succeeded in getting for the city from the cable company that simply are not included in this bill as things that Quest will need to provide.
Yeah.
Well,
I think properly, people, the governor needs to hear from you if you have an opinion on this. There's an argument made that we can change things later on after the bill, even if he signs it. But the truth is, folks, if you turn to that Google search and you see what went on at that legislative meeting, you'll see that the opposition was just basically said, you can sit at the table, but this bill's going through and this is going to happen.
It was a done deal before.
It was a done deal before the game ever started, and, and that's garbage.
And what's the number of this bill when we write the governor?
Senate file, so it's SF 544.
544, okay. 554?
554.
554, okay, the cable bill.
And it's about your cable, it's about your future. Now, maybe you think we're old stick in the muds here fighting change, but it's a lot more than that. And if your voices are shut down, then you're losing a lot more than you know. You look at what's going on in Russia today. They're shutting down people.
Local control.
And you're getting control, and we're getting it from a different source. Maybe we're not getting shot.
We're about to get some control from our moderator.
Yes, we are. And I would just like to say thank you to everyone, and we appreciate your time and watching us here tonight. And
go do something.
And please listen to Chris and contact your legislators and do something. Help save public access.
Because we're not going to go away. Even if they get rid of us today, we're not going. We're going to come back next year. we're going to come back we're going to start gathering our forces and let people know. We're going to start a new show, a technology show, where we start talking about technology in Iowa and discuss these things because they're important going into the 21st century.
Okay.
Thank you again. This has been Live and Local.